The year 1812, a small young nation stood at a crossroads. The United States of America was not far removed from its own revolution. It was a fragile experiment in democracy, a collection of states still learning how to be a single country. The people were proud, filled with the spirit of their newfound liberty. They cherished their independence and wished to protect it above all else. Across the vast Atlantic Ocean, the British Empire loomed large and powerful. It possessed the greatest navy the world had ever seen. Britain watched the fledgling American nation with a distant, often dismissive eye. Its actions on the high seas and along the North American frontier began to stir a deep anger within the American people. The mood in America was one of uneasy defiance. The nation was an underdog, a David facing a Goliath. The war did not erupt from a single event. It grew from many years of simmering resentments. One of the most significant causes was the disruption of American trade. As Britain fought its long war against France, it sought to cripple its enemy's economy. The Royal Navy established a blockade, stopping ships from trading with French-controlled Europe. American merchant vessels trying to conduct neutral trade were frequently caught in this net. British warships would halt American ships on the open ocean, seizing their cargo, disrupting lucrative trade routes. This was seen by many Americans as an unjust infringement on their right to free trade and economic prosperity. Even more infuriating to the American public was the practice of impressment. The British Royal Navy was constantly in need of sailors for its massive fleet. To fill its ranks, British warships would stop American vessels and search them for deserters from the Royal Navy. In practice, however, they often seized any sailor they claimed was a British subject. By June of 1812, President James Madison felt he had exhausted all other options. The constant pressure from the war hawks in Congress, combined with the unyielding policies of the British government, pushed the nation toward conflict. These vocal members of Congress, men like Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun, spoke with fiery passion about defending American honor. The declaration of war itself was a momentous step for the young government. It was the first time the United States had formally declared war on another nation since its founding. The vote in Congress was far from unanimous, revealing deep divisions within the country. The Federalist Party, centered in the New England states, was strongly opposed to the war, and they feared the economic ruin that a conflict would bring. Despite the internal opposition, the United States plunged into war. The nation, however, was woefully unprepared for a major conflict. The war was not a single, continuous fight, but a series of distinct campaigns fought across a vast territory. The United States had few professional soldiers and a small navy. It had to rely on courage and local knowledge to counter the strength of the British Empire. The initial American strategy focused on an invasion of Canada, believing it would be a simple matter to capture. This assumption proved to be a grave miscalculation, as early campaigns ended in humiliating defeats and retreats. One of the most critical theaters of the war was the Great Lakes. These vast inland seas were the highways of the frontier. The fight for the lakes was a desperate struggle involving hastily built ships and determined crews. A young American naval officer named Oliver Hazard Perry became a central figure in this contest. In September of 1813, he commanded a small American squadron against a British fleet on Lake Erie. The battle was fierce, and Perry's own flagship was battered into ruin, but he refused to surrender. In a dramatic moment, Perry transferred his command flag to another ship and continued the fight. His tenacity turned the tide of the battle, leading to a decisive American victory. After the engagement, he sent a now famous message to his superior officer. "We have met the enemy, and they are ours." This victory secured the northwestern frontier and restored morale. By 1814, the war in Europe against Napoleon was drawing to a close. Britain decided to strike at the heart of the United States. The British forces easily brushed aside the unprepared American militia at the Battle of Bladensburg. This defeat opened the road to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. In retaliation for the American burning of York earlier in the war, the British set fire to the city's public buildings, the Capitol, the President's house, and other offices. It was a moment of profound national humiliation. After burning Washington, the British turned their attention to Baltimore. The city's defenses were anchored by Fort McHenry. In September 1814, the British fleet unleashed a relentless 25-hour bombardment of the fort. From a ship in the harbor, Francis Scott Key anxiously watched the assault. As the sun rose the next morning, Key peered through the smoke and haze. He saw that the fort's large American flag was still flying defiantly over the ramparts. The sight inspired him to write a poem. He wrote of the bombs bursting in air, and the flag that yet waved o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. The story of the flag became a powerful symbol of American resilience and pride. As 1814 drew to a close, the war shifted to the southern coast. The strategic port of New Orleans, which controlled the mouth of the Mississippi River, became a prime target. The British assembled a large and seasoned force of veteran soldiers. The American commander was a tough, unyielding general from Tennessee named Andrew Jackson. Jackson acted with swift and decisive authority, declaring martial law and rallying a diverse group of fighters. Jackson masterfully forged this disparate group into a unified fighting force. Jackson chose his ground carefully, positioning his troops behind the Rodriguez Canal. On the morning of January 8, 1815, the main British force launched its grand assault. The American defenders, protected by their earthen ramparts, waited patiently. As the British soldiers advanced in their neat formations, they were met with a devastating storm of rifle and artillery fire. The open field became a killing ground, and the British lines were shattered. The battle was a stunningly one-sided victory for the Americans. It made Andrew Jackson a national hero overnight. It was a powerful and prideful conclusion to the war's fighting. Ironically, the most famous battle of the war was fought after the peace treaty had already been signed. News in the early 19th century travelled at the speed of a sailing ship. American and British diplomats were meeting in Ghent, Belgium. The negotiations were long and difficult. The British wanted significant territorial concessions. The Americans refused to give up any land. The final treaty was essentially a return to the situation that existed before the war. The Treaty of Ghent did not resolve core issues: impressment and neutral trading rights. Americans heard about Jackson's triumph at New Orleans first. Soon after, news of the peace treaty arrived. Many connected the two events, believing New Orleans forced Britain to sue for peace. Earlier humiliations faded, replaced by heroic images that shaped perception. The United States had faced the mighty British Empire for a second time and emerged intact, with independence reaffirmed and honour restored. The war had been a trial by fire, and the nation believed it had passed the test. The War of 1812 did more than just end in a peace treaty. It fundamentally reshaped the American identity. Before the war, the United States was often seen as a loose confederation of individual states, each with its own interests and loyalties. The conflict forced people from different regions to fight and sacrifice for a common cause. The war created a national story, complete with heroes, symbols, and songs. This newfound national spirit manifested in a surge of patriotism. The symbols of the nation, especially the flag, took on a deeper meaning. This pride translated into a new political consensus. Leaders focused on internal improvements and economic self-sufficiency. They supported a stronger army and navy, a national bank to stabilize the economy, and protective tariffs to encourage American manufacturing. The period became known as the Era of Good Feelings. The War of 1812 became a second war of independence, securing not just political freedom, but a true sense of national identity and self-confidence. The War of 1812 may seem like a distant chapter in history, but its lessons resonate even today. The conflict was a defining moment where a small nation made a conscious choice to defend its interests, even against a much stronger adversary. This principle, that a nation must be willing to stand up for its own people, its own economy, its own honor, is a powerful one. It is the core idea behind modern concepts like America First. The United States went to war to protect its sailors from impressment, its merchants from unjust seizure. It fought to secure its borders and assert its sovereignty. The war taught a powerful lesson, that national strength is not a gift. It must be built, defended, and asserted. Peace allowed the United States to grow its navy, protect its trade, and develop its economy with a new sense of security and purpose. The war also underscores the importance of national unity. A nation divided against itself is vulnerable. In the end, the War of 1812 was the crucible in which a stronger American identity was forged, rooted in self-reliance, national pride, and an unwavering focus on the nation first.